Hello everyone, welcome back. So we are going to continue our journey here with functions in Dart. So we've been talking about functions, how functions really represent these enclosed statements, right? Block of statements that we can add a name to it so that we can call it, and also we can pass parameters or arguments so that this entity, the function, can do all of its calculations, whatever we want it to do, and then spit out the result. Okay, so all is good there. And if you still have a few questions about that, rewatch the previous video so that you can have a solid understanding. And if still nothing, please don't forget to ask those questions in the forum, discussion forums. Now in this video, we are going to talk about yet another important concept of function or programming in general, which is called scope. What is this scope thing? So as we keep learning about the Dart language, you'll notice that there will be times when we need to have a variable that is outside of our functions. For instance, I can go up here and create a var called my outside var, give it nothing, or perhaps I can just go ahead and give it outside var. Okay, just like that. Notice it is outside of any of our methods that we created here. Okay, I'm going to put everything below there. Okay, so now we have our main entry point, and then outside of that we have this my outside var. Now this, if I am inside of the main here, I can actually go ahead and say my outside, and you can see I'm able to see it, or rather the main function is able to actually access that variable. And if we wish to set it to something else, hello there, it seems like that's what I always write, and I can change this print to my outside. Of course, since it's going to overwrite whatever we predefine, it will go ahead and say hello there. Okay, again, it's saying hello there because we are overriding whatever we added to it, right? Because we are assigning it something new, and because everything is read, the compiler reads our code from top to bottom. That's the reason why my outside var, it's no longer holding the outside var string. Okay, just in case you didn't know this. Great. Now I'm going to go ahead and create a function within a function here. I'm going to go ahead and say inside function. Okay, it's not going to return anything. Like this. Okay, say print from inside is my outside var. So let's go ahead at the bottom here. I'm going to call inside function. If you run this, you notice we will see from inside is still James, because we set it to James. At the top here we set it to hello, and from outside the same variable it says outside var. Okay, if we didn't set it here, we could still call it. If we didn't set it here, we could still also call it. Let's save this. You can see all is good, everything works. This may seem very confusing. You may say, well, okay, I don't know where you're going with this. Now let's do something interesting here, right? If I create a var inside here, agent name to be equal to bond. Yes, I know, I keep using the same names. First of all, let me go ahead and make sure that I spell it correctly. Now let's see if this variable, which is inside of our inside function, let's see what is the scope or what is the visibility of this variable. I'm going to copy this. So let's go inside. Let's see if I go ahead and say agent. Look at that, I cannot access it. Okay, let me maybe go down here, say agent, still nothing, right? So what this tells us is that in Dart, whenever you want to create a variable that is visible, so the scope is open to anything, to the whole file, you created it outside, which means anything inside will be able to use it. As you saw here, we created this my outside var, and we can call it anywhere. Here we're printing, even inside of a method. If we created another function, even inside of this function, still is possible to see it, or still is possible to access it. We could have created even another function inside of this function. In fact, I can go ahead and say inside inner function. And I could still say print. Look at this. My outside var. Still works. Okay? But the reverse isn't the same, which means if I were to create, as you notice here, if I create this, I created this agent variable inside of this function here, I cannot access outside of this function. However, I will be able to access inside of this function here if I say agent. You see? Why? Well, because this function is inside of this function. So a function in Dart really takes this scope of a variable and makes it its own and really guards it, if you will. Only the insiders will be able to use that variable, as you can see here, right? I have the agent. You can say agent is able to something as such, and it works. But I cannot go up here and try to say agent. It will not show. I can't go outside and create another function. Just say I'm going to call void another fun, and I can't say, I can still say my outside, no problem, but check this out, I can't say agent. You see, it's nowhere to be found. Now, if this is the first language that you're learning or you're still a beginner, this may seem very uneventful because you say, well, okay, Paolo, this is just, why even bother to show me? This will make a lot of more sense once we continue. Yes, I know I've been saying this for a little while now, but once we continue learning about Dart and object-oriented programming, classes and options and so forth, this will make more sense. There will be times when we want certain things just to be confined within a function. That's why the scope in Dart is set up the way it is, because we want to make sure that anything inside of a function can be accessed within that function, nothing outside. If you have a variable that needs to be accessed throughout the whole file, then you put it outside, because the scope now is open for everybody. So this here is what's called the lexical scope in Dart. Okay, this is just a word that the scope of variable is determined statically in Dart, which means you can actually go through if you want to know what is the scope of a certain variable. So if I were to give you an exercise and put all these variables inside of another function, inside of another function, and so forth, and one outside, you can infer by looking, you can say, I know that this one here, the scope is global, quote unquote, which means it can be seen anywhere inside of any function. However, anything that is inside of a function cannot be seen anywhere else, or cannot be accessed, if that makes sense, anywhere else. Only inside of that function. Like we said here, this agent is in this inner function here, is inside of this inside function. That's the reason why we're able to see the agent name variable, which was created inside of this function. So to finalize, the takeaway point here, you want to make sure that a variable is accessed or its scope is open for everybody. You just put at the top of everything, right? Not inside of any function. Then you're going to be able to access it. Now, if you want a variable to be accessed within a function, you just put inside of that function. That will just guarantee that only that function, anything that is inside that function, even if there's another function inside of that function, that it will also be able to access that variable. Yeah? Okay, perfect. If you go to dartlang.org, the website that I showed you before, and there is a lot of explanation and more information about that. So this is what I just explained here is what a lexical scope and how scope works in Dart. All right, perfect. I'll see you in the next video.